Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Live. Yesterday we showed you a clip about all the protests that's going on around the country on several issues, and we had a member of the opposition, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, to comment on that. Today we've got a member of the government, a minister from the government, to talk about that. Before that, I'd like to remind you and play you that clip. It's all about the protests. Here we go. And that was the clip of the various protests we've been experiencing, and I've got here in the studio, and we're delighted to welcome him back after several weeks, of course, but he's been here on our program several times. Mr. Vasudeva Nanayakkara, very good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
And thank you very much for coming on Newsline. We showed you a clip all to do with different protests all over the country. What do you have to say to that?
There are grievances around which protests gather. But at the same time, there are organized groups who ride on the protest with their political motives. So both these get mixed during any time when protests emerge out of grievances. I know this very well.
Are you suggesting that these protests are not all spontaneous action by the people?
Spontaneous partly, organized partly. Nothing can be without organized effort.
Right.
But at the same time, the large numbers who join in the protests are unaware of the political motives of those who lead them with their own organized apparatus.
But if we look at the issues of the fertilizer,
issues are very genuine.
Are they? Do you
are
agree?
Genuine.
And what as a government, what we are going to do about this? The farmers are up in arms. We are told that at least 2 seasons will be affected by the change or the attempt to change from chemical to organic. And so on. But Mr. Vasudeva, I'm wondering whether the problem is one of production or whether it is one of affordability, because in this country we have 5.7 million families approximately, and approximately 2.5% of them, or 142,000 families, are able to afford to pay for organic foods and so on. If we are to double that to say 5%, that would mean finding another 142,000 people who can afford the higher prices associated with organic produce. Now, within this very difficult economy, how are we going to find these other 142,000 people, or many more even, to afford the higher prices associated with organic produce?
Organic products are not necessarily entailed with higher prices.
Yes, but more often than not they are.
Organic production will find a high demand in foreign markets,
yes,
and where you will find high prices paid for organic products. But in countries within its own local domestic market, organic becomes the normal. It is not going to be on demand,
yes,
at a higher price.
I see what you say. I understand what you say about the higher prices it can fetch overseas. But before all that, first we need, charity begins at home. And first of all, we need to feed our people.
Of course, yes.
And we need to ensure the food security of our country.
Yes.
Before looking at the more
lucrative markets.
Yes.
Yeah, quite. I am not the one who started on the higher prices. You.
Yes, I did. Because I'm saying to you that as it is, we are struggling with a per capita GDP of under $4,000. We're trying to get out of that. In between, we've got the economy being hit for no fault of your governments, the pandemic, COVID-19, and so on. And therefore, the money supplied to the people is still less. There are still people who are earning 50% of their salaries and so on. So how are they going to afford the higher prices?
There won't be higher prices for organic products.
But you all have just now removed all the essential prices.
That is the mistake that we may underline as the present cause of high prices rather than the organic.
Yeah, okay, leave the organic.
So we leave the organic. That's not an issue.
It's not an issue right now, but it is becoming an issue.
I tell you, my brother's garden does not apply, he does not apply any chemical fertilizer, any chemical elements into it for his cultivations. So all what he produces is organic. But that does not bring him higher prices in the market. Because what takka is what takka, whether it is organic or not. And the price paid by the people for what takka will be the same. So therefore, leave the domestic market out.
Okay, what about the increased...
No, I am agreeable about the other point you made. We have removed all the price controls.
Yes.
Price controls are of no use if they are not effective.
Right. What do you mean not effective? Do you mean that the government is having difficulty in implementation?
Implementation, enforcement.
And in between all this, there are people who are necessarily associated with this government who've made whirlwind profits.
Who made?
Whirlwind profits.
Well,
I'm talking about...
leave that out.
Okay.
Because that's in your, that's peculiarly in your knowledge.
No, it is not peculiarly in my knowledge, and I'm surprised you're saying that, because Mr. Vasudeva Nanayakkara, you've been one of the leading public interest litigants in this country.
I am.
And that is why it is in that context that I'm mentioning it to you. You've been the champion of the people's rights.
Of course.
And so on.
I am not denying that there is plenty of merit in what you say. But I said that is more within your knowledge than mine. However, we will come now to the question of why we are not implementing and enforcing our price controls. Firstly, you must have sufficient stocks to be released to the market at prices which are competitive.
Okay.
If the government is not able to command such stocks, then the question of price control is not effective.
This government...
Price control always goes side by side with competitive prices for the same product which is available at different outlets.
But Mr. Vasudeva, you know,
I hope I'm making myself clear.
Well, but I'm completely puzzled by what you're saying, because, you know, this government, and you're not alone, previous governments have also done it, but it is a people who suffer. For example, the Lanka Satosa is sort of used as yet another mint, apart from the mint that you'll already have to print money. Right, the Satosa is being used as some
You're bundling too many things together.
Well, I'm saying that.
Like what Faraz does.
No, not at all. Not at all. Now then, thank you very much for your messages, and I'm going to read out this message because it's particularly long.
Can I say something?
Please do.
About what you just now raised. If the socially concerned institutions of the government are not able to command stocks of any particular item at least by 50%, you cannot effectively control prices. You have to release so much of it into the market at competitive rates when you will have the what you call the
market price,
what you call the backstage
activity.
No, the backstage support that you need in order to enforce the price controls. Price controls are not effected only by the price control inspectors. How many of them are there in the whole country? So how can the price control inspectors ever enforce price control laws? How it can be done is with competitive marketing of the product with sufficient stocks in the hands of the government. This is the point I want to make.
Thank you. Now then, I'm going to read out this message. It's from a member of the public who's been kind enough to sit there and type it all up, I suppose. Now here we go. Now you're not to take any offense. I have not read this message myself before because
no offense taken at anything you say.
Thank you. Thank you. It's all taken in the spirit of representing one Sri Lanka, one country. Please tell this Member of Parliament that he is accusing this crowd who are coming out when this is exactly what they did throughout the last government. Tell him he should be ashamed of himself. He was a man who promised so much to the poor and downtrodden, and here he is showing his true colors. Also, organic food is going good in the long run, but not at this time when things are so hard for the people. It should have been phased in quietly. He will pay one day for enabling these wrong things to be done. He is a disgrace, and I dare you to read this. Well, I've read it. There. What do you say? Well, can you respond, Mr. Vasudeva Nanayakkara? It's a long message.
Yes. I first deal with the question of protest. And how he tells me that I have been part of the protest during the last government. So obviously he is a protector of the last government. Otherwise he wouldn't be talking in those terms.
But he could be a well-balanced person who's observing.
More probably not. Anyway, even giving him that benefit, let's see, I said there are genuine grievances around which protests gather. I also said there are those who are within it with political motives in organizing and engineering them. So those two elements together only bring out a protest. That is why purely by organizing and engineering you can't get a protest out unless there is an objective condition of genuine grievance.
But honestly, I have been there out in the areas, and I have seen people genuinely concerned, and they feel that the only way they can get their message across to the government is by protesting.
Certainly,
surely you know that yourself.
Certainly I recognize that right of the people, and I recognize that there is really the cause for them to act in the way that they do. I quite sympathize with them for their genuine needs, but I also see that the opposition is making their hay while the sun shines.
I dare say that many of these things are own goals from the government. We'll come back to that after this short break. We have to quick look at the headlines this evening, and we'll see you on the other side of the break with Vasudeva Nanayakkara.
More protests.
Newsfirst Newsline with Shaukat Ali.
Valuable Finance, Best Finance
Culture Minister. China responds to US claims of setting up a Chinese military base in Sri Lanka. Is a Chinese company shipping harmful seaweed to Sri Lanka as organic fertilizer?
ඔය කියන චීන කාබනික පොහොර ගෙනාවොත් ඒ ටිකම ප්‍රමාණවත් මේක ආසන්න ප්‍රමාණයක් අපේ පසට එකතු වෙනවා.
Newsfirst Newsline with Shaukat Ali.
And thank you very much for all your messages. Welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation, of course, with that iconic politician, Mr. Vasudeva Nanayakkara. Now, Mr. Vasu, if I may call you that, President Mahinda Rajapaksa made a speech at the SLPP 50th-year celebrations, or your anniversary of the anniversary of the SLPP. And he said something that really has caught, is reflective of the real situation, politically speaking. He asked that they all be united, suggesting to me that there is an awful lot of disunity and unhappiness going on. That isn't very good for stable policies and politics, is it?
The Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's, Honorable Mahinda Rajapaksa's speech made at the SLPP conference, for me, is not only reflective of the ground situation, but also what said in the politics of our age. Because he hit the nail on its head on several issues and showed that you can't go on like this. This is exactly where we are. We can't go on like this.
So what's the solution?
Well, I don't have a solution immediately to tell you, but we have to discover a solution. That's how solutions come.
In this discovery mode, would you be minded to invite the rest of the Parliament, the rest of your colleagues in Parliament, to come have an all-party, put all your heads in and have a go? Or is it that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's mindset is inflexible, that it won't permit him to do
not
this?
Gotabaya Rajapaksa, and he is our president.
Yeah.
We have got him as the candidate who gathered a large number of votes.
How many of those 6.9 million people will now be deeply unhappy with his performance thus far?
I have no straightforward answer to that.
Yes. Hazard a guess.
No.
Hazard a guess.
To guess, 50% of them are still behind Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the politics that he represented at that time.
3.45 million, ladies and gentlemen.
The rest are critical and angry, but none have moved away into opposition.
Do you know what happened in 2015?
Yeah, I know what.
Yes. Well, President Mahinda Rajapaksa.
Then there was a big breakaway from the government into the ranks of the opposition.
After the presidential loss.
After the presidential.
After President Rajapaksa lost.
2015 presidential election.
Yes.
We lose.
Yes, you lost.
Yes.
And then in the parliamentary election.
Maithripala Sirisena and Rajitha Senaratne and that entire clique crossed over long ago.
And that's
long before that.
Yeah.
And they only created the conditions necessary for the UNP alliance to take this leap forward as against us.
Today the program appears to be run by the public. I love this question. I wonder if we should have that person on the program. I can give a solution. All the supporting parties should walk out and remove the 2/3 majority that is helping them to do all these horrible things they're doing. As long as these parties keep supporting all this wrong stuff, they will go down as enablers who allow the poor to suffer like this. There you go, a solution.
My comment is that that's simplistic.
Okay.
It's more subtle and complex. Political forces are at work at all the time. What are these political forces? Whom do they represent? Therefore, to call for a convergence of all people in the parliament into one whole is unrealistic and untheoretical. Therefore, your proposition has no sense.
Even if it means that the republic, the people, will feel a little bit more happier because they'll figure that everybody is working towards the common good. The common good is the people of the country.
Whereas there is no common good achievable by convergence of everybody, because every section of those who are in politics has their own path, has their own views, has their own.
A member of the NPP told me yesterday on this program. Well, you know, the national. Well, no, the JVPs combined. Dr. Harini Amursuri told me yesterday on this program that they can't possibly join the government because they can't sit at the same table of. Or in effect, what you said was that there are rogues there and they can't be seated at the same table.
Well, if we are talking about rogues, the JVP has to only refer to the speech made by Rajitha Senaratne in the parliament, and his son made a similar speech in the parliament about how their leader accepted money inside the lavatory of the land ministry.
With all due respect to various ministers, some of these tales are simply that, they're tales.
Well, it was said in Parliament, there was no denial.
There's parliamentary privilege, which I don't have.
There was no denial in the Parliament.
Right.
There was no, what you call a retaliation.
Now then.
Anyway, that apart.
Okay, that apart. Yes, tell us.
Rogues are everywhere in the world and in every political party. So therefore, one cannot be concerned about rogues. One has to be concerned about the path that particular political force will take in order to achieve the results for the people.
Can I ask you this? You're a person with a legal background. Are you with a legal background?
Yeah, I'm a lawyer.
Right.
Never practiced.
That's fine. But you understand the law. Now then. Now then. Some time back, and we've seen this happening, the Attorney General's department decided to indict various people. Now we find an almost a steady stream of cases where the Attorney General's now turning up and saying, oh, well, you know what, we're going to withdraw those indictments. What's going on? Is the Attorney General's department, did they make a mistake? I mean, what's going on? Why are they...
What grounds did he state in court for withdrawing an indictment? Everything revolves around the grounds that he has placed before the court.
So then my question to you then, Mr. Vasu, is when they did charge them, indict them originally,
did they have grounds?
Did they have grounds, or were they then being used as political tools?
Well, any government officer or a department of the government will bear the mark of politics inescapably. So therefore there is no getting away from the fact that politics ultimately rules over everything, including the judiciary.
Now then, we've got a few more minutes to go. I want to ask you this. What are you all sitting down together, and what are you going to do to ease the hardships of the people? Honestly.
We are seeking to change the path of the government in order to relieve the people of their sufferings. In practical terms, we want the government to engage in wholesale business, import trade, and be in possession of sufficient stocks of the essential items and be releasing them to the markets at fair prices, which is the only way that you can fight against this mafia of traders.
Hopefully
that is to tell you practically what ought to be done.
And I all
this is what I am fighting for, and my colleagues are fighting for within the government.
What about the sale of the power station, the KEGALLE power station?
Switched over to the past.
I just last.
You know my position regarding.
Are you opposed to the KEGALLE deal?
Of course, I am. I am committedly opposed to it.
And there's been a serious departure from process.
I will not rest until it is reversed if I remain in this government.
Well, I have to say bravo to you about that, you know. Now then, so you are opposed to the KEGALLE power deal, but why? What, in very quickly, why?
Because our country suffers a loss in the entire deal. Our country suffers a loss in the entire deal. Two, our sovereignty is threatened when monopoly of gas supplies are given to a foreign company. These two are good reasons why I should oppose it.
And you are? And you are opposing it?
I am.
Vasudeva.
Not only me alone. I am sure it is more than 50% of our government group.
Okay.
But they are yet to speak out.
Well, I hope they find their backbone.
They will.
Quicker than you found.
They will.
You know, you found your backbone and you've spoken up.
They will.
Vasudeva Nanayakkara, it's been delightful having you on the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Faraz. This is more Faraz program than Newsline. Without you,
Newsline is
no
Faraz,
Newsline,
and Faraz is Newsline. But we do have these others.
I enjoyed the evening.
Thank you very much. And that's the way it was. This is all thanks to Team News First and, of course, the Capital Maharaja Group, for which we are all very proud to work for. It's now time for the Primetime News. Take care, have a great evening, and as always, God bless you.